Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Jó napot kívánok. First, let me say and join the others who said a big thank you to the Lantos family and the Lantos Institute for organizing this very important conference. I would like to say to my dear friend Zsolt Nemet, the Deputy Foreign Minister, thank you very much for your clear messages regarding my country. In this day and age, on the backdrop of what we heard about the new anti-Semitism nowadays, it's very important to hear these clear messages coming from you and coming from this chamber, and we in Israel appreciate it very much. I also would like to say that I was impressed by the speech of the Deputy Prime Minister. I think it's an important speech, and I wish that the media will report on it as is. What we are having today, ladies and gentlemen, is a conference in which we heard a lot of many important statements, descriptions, ideas, which we have already heard in the past. But it's important that we have this conference. It's another milestone in the long way in dealing with anti-Semitism, and if you want, fighting anti-Semitism, and the fact that this conference takes place here in Budapest in the 21st century, together with us, is something that we should appreciate, something that we should use, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to talk to you, to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, and if you see, I am the one who stands between you and the buffet lunch. And I'm going to be very quickly but very precise, because I would like to share with you something from today, something from my experience as being ambassador here of the State of Israel for the last 2 years. But before, I was the deputy ambassador in Berlin, and I think I know a little bit about what is the role of an Israeli diplomat, not to mention an Israeli ambassador in these two countries. But I will concentrate on today's activities and my perception here in Budapest. I wanted to come here and to serve my country as the Israeli ambassador. I have no roots in this country or in this region. Well, actually, yes, but not connected to the Carpathian Basin. I don't speak the language, unfortunately. I'm trying, but it's not easy. But nevertheless, I see it not only as a disadvantage, but also an advantage, because I'm not that emotionally connected to this country. So I have a little bit of kind of a detached perspective to see what's going on in this country and how to conduct my ways here in this magnificent country, beautiful country, and good people. Before I came, of course, I'd educated myself. I read everything which is possible about this long and complicated history of this country, of Hungary. I learned as much as I could about the Hungarian people. I read and learned about the positive things, the positive developments, the failures, the traumas, Trianon. I learned a little bit about the social grouping in this country, and I learned about what is called the process of a different culture, to get to know it. This is an ongoing process for me, and I'm still doing it. I learned, of course, ladies and gentlemen, about the tragedy of what happened here to my brothers and sisters, the Jews, in 1944, but not only in 1944, it doesn't start in 1944. I learned that the whole thing started in 1919, and throughout these years until it culminated in the big tragedy, in the systematic industrial discrimination of our brothers and sisters in 3 months in 1944. So I learned a lot about this country. It doesn't mean that I know now. I know that I know nothing, but at least I have a little bit of perspective to conduct my role as an Israeli ambassador, which is not easy, ladies and gentlemen, because we, as Israeli ambassadors, we are equipped, or we wear two hats. One is the natural one, the diplomatic one, to represent the State of Israel, the sovereign State of Israel, the democratic one vis-à-vis the host country, in this case Hungary. In this framework, I have to maintain the interest of my country. to lobby for my country within the politicians, to find, and this is very important, mutual interest between us, Israel, and the Hungarian society, be it the politicians or the business people, in order to build bridges. I was sent here based upon the decision of the government and based upon the desire to show that the Israeli perspective vis-à-vis Hungary is a positive one. We have mutual relations, we have understanding, and we have friendship. I will talk a little bit about it later. This is, of course, something you don't have to take for granted, you have to work on, but this is our daily life. But, the other hand, every Israeli ambassador who leaves this country has an historical and moral obligation, not only to the Israelis, but also to the Jewish people who is outside the borders of the Jewish state. We have this moral and historical commitment, and that's why the Jewish community here in this country, be it in Budapest, be it in Debrecen, be it in Szeged or in Pécs or in Achkaniza or elsewhere, is part of parcel of my portfolio, of my, so to speak, head. Let me talk a little bit why it is so important for us, the Israeli diplomats or the Israeli diplomacy, to reach out and to be in constant contact with the Jewish community. Well, if you look at the Declaration of Independence of Israel from 1948, there are some basic assumptions which are shaping the relations between Israel and the diaspora, the Jewish diaspora. There are three main principles which I will go very quickly over. The Jewish state, Israel is the land of the Jewish state. As such, belongs to the Jewish people who live outside Israel. The state of Israel is committed to the Jewish diaspora. The Jewish country will open its gates to everyone, every Jewish people, who would like to immigrate and participate in the Zionist activities. We are talking about ingathering of the exiles, and the Jewish state is relying on the Jewish community outside the borders in gathering together to help us in Israel to fulfill the Zionist dream of having our national homeland secured and prosperous. These are the three pillars in which characterize the relations between Israel, the Jewish state, and the Jewish diaspora. And in one sentence, if you may, the state of Israel expresses the mutual responsibility and the common destiny between the state and the Jewish people in the diaspora. I would like to state something which people tend to take for granted, but we have to remind ourselves almost every day. The Jewish people all over is one of the strategic assets, one of the most important strategic assets of Israel, which is important to us as individuals and also as a society. And this is important, a strategic important asset, which guarantees or contributes to the continuation and to the prosperity of the Jewish civilization, whatever you find it. The state of Israel as such strengthens the identity, the national pride, and also the security feeling of Jews all over the world. The state of Israel, as you probably know from history, is committed to the well-being and to the safety of the Jewish people, and I would like to mention only a few ideas. When the terror attack happened in Paris, in France, Israel was there. Israel is also leading the fight against anti-Semitism in the world regarding bringing to justice Nazi war criminals, and I just want to mention Eichmann and Demjanjuk. I would like also to mention that every Jewish people all over the world knows that whatever happens, he can always come to us and we will embrace him in open arms and open heart. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moral responsibility, this is the mission that we Israeli diplomats are equipped with when we leave Jerusalem to our host countries. This applies to me too. This is where it starts from. These are the roots for me being an Israeli ambassador in this country? Well, the other hat, as I mentioned, is to represent Israel vis-à-vis the Hungarian society. This is our daily bread. We are doing on a regular basis. We maintain our interest. We build bridges and connection to the Hungarian society. I travel a lot in this country. I visit almost every major places here, big, medium, small countries, cities and towns, and I reach out. I reach out because you should know that diplomatic relations are not a topic of mood or someone doing a favor to somebody else. These relations between countries are based upon interest. Most of the time they coincide, sometimes they are conflicting. And doing this balance act between parallel interest and conflicting interest, this is my work. And I'm doing it as what I look and as what I say through constructive activities. Everything which is aimed to boost, to promote the diplomatic relations between, the bilateral relation between Israel and Hungary. This is a constructive activities, and when there is a need, ladies and gentlemen, there is a critical dialogue. And I have to balance between them. And this is what I'm doing since I ever come here. In this constructive dialogue that I mentioned, I would like to I'm active in order to promote friendly relations, as I said, and as well to work together with the Jewish community to support them, to be a source of moral support to this very important Jewish community in this country, which is still traumatized from the past. Ladies and gentlemen, as the ambassador of Israel, I am a full partner in dealing with the anti-Semitism in this country. I don't have to be here to tell you what I've been doing for the last 2 years. It's not only me. This mission has been shared by my predecessors. They have started. I continue, and my people who will come, or my colleagues who will come after me, my successors, will continue. It is an ongoing process of dealing with anti-Semitism. I do it as an Israeli, as a Jewish person, because one cannot ignore this ugly phenomena of anti-Semitism. Not to mention that myself, as an ambassador of Israel, on the backdrop of what I said before, I cannot ignore it, and I'm not doing it. Unfortunately, since I came here 2 years ago, I had to devote some of my time to deal with this phenomena on the declarative and the public level, but also behind the scene, because my role as an ambassador is not only to be visible in order to shove the truth in the face, but also to build bridges behind the scene. And I've been doing it with close cooperation, and I must tell you, most of the time with good cooperation with my Hungarian interlocutor, far from the media. Ladies and gentlemen, once we have anti-Semitism events, there is kind of automatic reaction, which is good to react, either by us, Jewish community, or by the politician, or by those who really care. We did it in the last 2 years. I just want to mention the burning twice of the Israeli flag in front, one of them, one incident happened in front of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the dissemination of conspiracy theory about the role of Israel and Israeli business people here, the almost physical attack of Rabbi Schweitzer, the legendary rabbi in this community, etc., etc. This automatic and public reaction, outcry, is important. It is good that it is being done. Is it enough? I don't think so. This activities, which is important by itself, should be supplemented by raising the awareness within the society in Hungary, the Hungarian society, regarding anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiments. The awareness within the society itself. It is important because every time something like this happens, and I remember my German time, and it happens here too, every time an anti-Semitic event happens, the first to be reached for their reaction are the Jewish community and the Israeli ambassador, as if it was our responsibility to react immediately. Sometimes I wonder, why are we the first to be approached on this issue? We are the victims. We are not the perpetrators. And if you want our reaction, it's obviously, you know what this action is going to be. Please, ladies and gentlemen of the media, don't approach us. Approach your own people. Approach your own society. Ask them what they are going to do about it, because it's your problem. As far as I know, ladies and gentlemen, in my country, in Israel, there is no anti-Semitism. There are other problems, but definitely there is no anti-Semitism. So this public awareness, ladies and gentlemen, for me is very, very important target dealing with the issue of anti-Semitism. And how do I go about raising this public awareness? I will share with you. We are working together with my colleagues at the embassy. It's not one-man show. It's a teamwork at the embassy in order to promote the State of Israel as of today, after 65 years of independence, in the 21st century, as a country which is the only democracy in the Middle East. And ladies and gentlemen, democratic elections does not make a society democratic, be it in Gaza or be it elsewhere in the Middle East. So we promote Israel in issues which have nothing to do with anti-Semitism, which have nothing to do with the Middle East conflict. We would like to present Israel as a source of inspiration to the Hungarian society, to expose them, to show them why Israel is the hub of innovation, of initiative, creativity, of thinking out of the box. In this regard, let me just remind you, or tell you, that the day after tomorrow, we are going to have the first ever Israel-Hungarian Innovation Day, 20 minutes from here, in Grafisok Park, in which Israeli startup companies will cooperate with Hungarian startup companies, and the Hungarian young entrepreneur will come and will understand why, A, it is worthwhile to be in touch with Israel, and B, they will understand that if we, a small country like Israel, did it, they can do it too. And if they understand, then they can do business. And if they do business, they meet people. And ladies and gentlemen, public awareness is all about people talking to people in which they reduce animosity, racism, bigotry. They know that what we have to deal with are human beings. So this was only one example, and we have been doing it for the last 25 years since the resumption of the diplomatic relations, and we'll have to continue. Because only through culture, only through presenting Israel as a normal, friendly country to Hungary, we will be able to make sure that next time, when there is something like this happen, an anti-Semitic and anti-Israel demonstration happens, or act happens, the Israeli embassy and the ambassador and the Jewish community will not be asked to react. The society will act. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to go over the numerous of cultural activities and other activities that we have been doing here, all in the aim of presenting Israel, as I said. I would like to concentrate on one major issue which has been mentioned here by my friend, the president of the Jewish community, and this is the national curriculum. When I heard that the national curriculum is going to be reshaped or to be created from scratches in this country, I saw it, I thought it was a great opportunity for me as a representative of the State of Israel, of the modern State of Israel, to get in touch, to start a dialogue with the Hungarian partners at the Ministry of Education. And I must tell you that this dialogue, this conversation have been going on for almost 2 years, and as Mr. Eisler said, is going to be a successful one. You know, ladies and gentlemen, what is a good agreement? Be it a political agreement or be it a commercial agreement. A good agreement is that it is good that both sides are not happy. So you cannot be 100% happy, but if we find a compromise, if we find a system in which the history of the Jewish community in this country, ladies and gentlemen, which has been until now relatively a secret, a hidden secret, will be part of the textbook of the high school students. And they will know that those who are buried in their cemeteries in their small towns were part and parcel of the Hungarian societies. These Hungarian Jews, these Hungarians with different religions, but they were patriotic Hungarians, contributed to the prosperity and the well-being of this country throughout the years since the middle of the 19th century until the big tragedy. If they know about it, they will appreciate it. They will understand that what we are talking about is people. People who were part of the society, part of the neighborhood. The small lady, the old lady on the market who sold the whole people their apples and oranges. The doctor who took care of Hungarians, irrespective of them being Jewish, Roma, or whatever. The lawyer, those were perished. Those, before they perished, contributed to make Hungary at that time a prosperous and very successful country. If we work, and this was my intention, to work to create or to, in a dialogue, to have an influence with the Hungarian authority, to present in the textbooks an image of Israel, which is not only through the spectrum of the Middle East conflict, which is not only through the spectrum of religion, but it's through a broader spectrum of democracy and shared values and innovation and culture and science and technology, sport, then we might have a chance that in the future Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, Deputy Foreign Minister of Hungary will look at Israel and the Jewish community a little bit differently. And they will know that they have a responsibility to wake up, to stand up, and to react when their action is needed. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I can go on and talk to you about our daily life, our daily activities at the embassy vis-à-vis these two pillars with the Jewish community and with the Hungarian society. But I would like to make my speech shorten and to tell you that all those activities, part of it I mentioned with you, is based upon respect and sensitivity to the Hungarian society, to the Hungarian history, to the Hungarian culture. As I said, we must work together. We must create a situation in which the public will stand up and will say, no more. I would like to commend, in this issue, the decision of the government of Hungary to dedicate the year 2014 to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Shoah in this country. I think it's a courageous decision. I think it's the right decision at the right time. I would like to say in this regard, it is very important, ladies and gentlemen, to be loyal to the truth, to the historical truth as we know. Historical truth all over the world, but specifically the historical truth of the Second World War and of the Shoah. If you are loyal to the truth, you know that only the truth will set us free. Thank you very much.